Welcome to the studio. My name's Chris Line. Today I'm going to be giving you some tips on doing live interviews, be that for streams, podcasts, or whatever you happen to be doing. Now, I've been doing interviews for a while. I've kind of honed my craft at this point, I like to think. I've been doing them on TV. I've done live stage shows at places like E3 and PAX. I've done podcasts. I've been interviewed. I've done all sorts of stuff when it comes to interviewing people. And the tips I'm going to give, I think they're pretty useful. They're stuff that I've come to the conclusion of over all the years. So stick around. We're going to get into it. First things first, research. The minute you know who you're going to be talking to, you want to be doing your research. So the first thing I like to do when setting up a conversation with someone, because that's the first port of call, knowing when and where you're going to be interviewing people. So this is going to be emails or just chat or whatever. First thing I want to ask them, what their name is, what their pronouns are, and what are the key points they want to hit. Now, the key points they want to hit, generally for me, so I would be interviewing people about video games most of the time. So a lot of the time a game developer wants to talk about specific things, be that a beta's coming out, or that you can pre-order the game today, or that the game's out now, or just knowing about the game. I want to know what those are, because really one of the key things about interviewing someone, for me, because you can get really journalistic with it and be like, oh, I want to get the truth. But it's like, that's not kind of the interviews I like to do. I like my interviews to showcase the person I'm interviewing in their best possible light. I want them to get the information they want to get across, and I want them to come across very well while they're doing it. So getting those key points is essential because they're not going to remember everything. And setting this up right at the start is very important. It also lets them know that you know what you're doing, which is also very important, but we'll get into that. If you happen to be talking about a game, or this doesn't have to be a game, right? Like my examples are going to be video games, because that's the world I come from. But if you're talking about anything, any piece of media, a book, an album, anything, get a feel for it before you go and talk to them about it. Now, some of the time, it's not going to be out yet. You're not going to be able to play it. So a lot of the interviews I did, these were previews of games at trade shows, like I said, like at PAX or E3. So I didn't get a chance to play it. You're kind of reacting to the live gameplay right there and then. However, if it's about something that's already out, play it, listen to it, read it, watch it, whatever you gotta do. Now with a video game, you may not have time to finish it. Some video games are very long, but try and play enough of it to get a sense of it, because you're going to be talking to this person about it and they're going to be making references to it, and your understanding is going to be important to the audience's understanding. That's a key point for me, because what the developer's trying to do is let you know about the game so people get it, right? Now, you need to translate that to the audience. Not all the time. Not all the time. Honestly, most people are great at describing what it is they're trying to talk about. And if it's an interview where you're not talking about a product, you're just hanging out and getting to know someone, you don't need to do this as much. But honestly, this all ties back into the trying to showcase the best of a person, right? So to me, that understanding of them and what their product is and stuff, super important, because you are then imparting that to the audience. When they make a reference to something that may not be super clear to somebody that's not watched, played, listened to the thing they're talking about, you know. So you can translate that to the audience. Like, oh, so you mean... Don't do that. That won't help. Unless you're talking to Charlie Brown, then, that might help if you're an adult. Although it didn't help. They were confused. Anyway, my point being, you're trying to make sure that the people watching and listening get what they're talking about. So play the game. So you get it. So you can understand what they're saying. So you can translate that to the audience watching. Super important. Next up, plan. Plan what you're going to do, even if this is loose. So for me, a lot of the time you're working with a producer. And they're running the cameras, they're running a live stream, they're running the podcast. Sometimes the producer is you, but we'll get to that. Now, if there's a producer, they've probably done a run of show. They've probably got information for you. Now, your run of show is going to be a bit of paper that just tells you, like, this is the game that's coming up. This is the name of the person that's coming up. This is the basic information. This is what you need to know and what time it is happening and for how long it should be happening. Make sure you get that before the thing you're doing, right? Ideally, get it on a tablet. If you can print it off, print it off. If not, write it down. I generally find writing stuff down helps me remember it. So translating it to like handwritten stuff that you can still read, I find that it helps me remember stuff a lot. But you want to get that early and you want to get that as soon as possible, and you want to kind of have a vague sense of it. Now, you and the producer that I mentioned, you're going to be working together. They're going to be letting you know what's coming up next. Something that's super useful, actually. If it's a live stream and they're using XSplit Broadcaster, get them to do projector mode of a specific scene that has all that information on it. So for me, when I'm doing a live stage at like PAX or something like that, and we're doing interview after interview after interview all day, we did a bunch of these, the indie.xsplit stages, like years back now. What I do, and some of the time it was actually Lewis from this channel who was running the production, he would broadcast to the monitor on the stage one scene that just has that information in it. Got a clock, because I was like, can I know the time? Up next, on now, what the game is, basic information, what the people's names are. Just on the screen right in front of you. So this basic information is there. That's super useful. Now, if you're not doing something live streamed, XSplit Presenter can also do this exact same projector mode. So you can make slides that are all of your run of show, have them up on a screen right there, right in front of you in your peripheral vision. Perfect. Like I've got that right now for this video. I got notes going right there, right now. Same thing, except in, Presenter, you can have it nice and big. It looks all nice. Perfect. So I would definitely recommend doing that. Okay, so when you come to the interview, like before it starts, one of the most important things to me is to keep it positive and keep it comfortable. So when you're first introduced to the person, or the person comes online, if you're doing a podcast, you want to have a bit of conversation, help them feel relaxed. So for most people being interviewed, particularly in a live setting, which is what mine was, like it was going out on a live stream, we were up on a stage, there were people watching. This isn't like a totally natural and comfortable thing for everyone. So you want to let them know two things in kind of the way you talk and your body language. Sounds weird. Go with me. You want them to know that you're comfortable, you're relaxed, and you know what you're doing. These things are important. Now, all of this is helped by the stuff we already did. You want to know their name. You want to know what you're doing. You want to know how long everything's going to take. You want to say hello. You want to get them sat down. You want to get them relaxed. Let them know. For me, I would let them know, don't worry about it. This is just a conversation that me and you are going to have. We're just chatting. Because that's the main thing to me. The tone I love to do. And this is personal preference. Like, a lot of people like to do an interview where you sit down and, hey, how's it going? Tell us about the thing. Da, 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 da. Very structured. And that really does help get information out a lot of the time. I like to use that because, like I said, you need a structure, you need your research. But I like to keep my tone conversational. I think that's important. Like, I think you are going to get more interesting stuff out of the person you're talking to. Again, this feeds into, I think you're going to get the best out of the person you're talking to. But also for someone watching, I think it's more fun. Like, so keeping it kind of conversational, I think is important. So to me, this means not holding yourself to where the interview's meant to be at a certain time. Like, you've got your key points. You need to make sure you hit those. And that's actually, that's something you want to reiterate. Before I get to that, that's something you want to reiterate when they turn up. Check how to pronounce their name. That's important. If you don't feel confident in it, check anyway. Check anyway. You know why? Because you should be introducing them. Don't get them to introduce themselves. Now, I've done it plenty of times. You're on day 4 of a PAX. It's 500 hours into the day. This is your 50th interview, sometimes your brain is fried and you cannot remember stuff. But honestly, your job is to introduce them. So you need to check how to pronounce their name with them. You need to make sure you are on that. It's just professional. Like I said, I've done it myself, so I'm not calling you out, but I think it's a professional courtesy that you introduce them and you know how to pronounce their name. And like I said, you know their pronouns, you know the game's name, you know all the stuff. Now, as I was saying though, what you want to be doing is not holding yourself too rigidly to a structure. So for example, something funny comes up, someone says something funny, you can follow that. You can keep following that little vein of something funny or interesting that just came up. Or if you're playing a game, like a lot of the time it would be a developer demoing a game while I interview another developer. Something interesting happens in the game, let's start talking about that. Now, you don't want to get too off track. You don't want to let the whole interview go crazy, because then you've only got a limited amount of time and you're going to start missing stuff. You're going to start not talking about the key points that you want to hit. So it's a balancing act. And also, here's a tip from me to you. When you follow that vein and you're all having fun and you know that you can kind of sense that that conversation is coming to a place where you could end it, you blame yourself. Because it's kind of you're in charge. It's kind of you that's like, go that way. It's an easy way to get out of it. Just like, well, enough about that. We got to talk about this thing. Like that kind of stuff. Just to pull it back into where the conversation wants to go. That I think is important. I think it's a tonal thing. I think it's fun. Follow where the conversation's going, but make sure you stick to your key points. So once you're in the interview, keep the conversation going. That's the next thing. It's sometimes easy. It's sometimes difficult, depending on who you're interviewing. Not because of the person necessarily, but just because everyone's different. Not everyone's super chatty. Some people just want to tell you about the game. It's your job to keep the conversation going. So make sure you do. Like I said, you can pick up things that are happening in the game. You can pick up things that they've said that they're talking about that are not specifically the things you want to hit. But knowing your key points and doing your research is going to keep that conversation going. So really, I can't hammer home how important having played something that you're going to talk about or listen to or read or, whatever. That's going to keep the conversation going. Even if they don't have much to say about it, even if it's just like, here's my game, it's out now. Even if that's it, like, you should have enough information you can keep it going. Also, be mindful of the time. I mentioned getting XSplit broadcaster or presenter and having a clock in your presentation on that screen. Be mindful of the time purely because if you are booked into a whole show for a whole day, you've got other guests coming up. So you're going to inconvenience them if you overrun. You're going to inconvenience the production staff. But if you're not doing a whole show, you're just doing this one interview. For the person you're interviewing, it's super important and respectful to be aware of the time. This person has set aside the exact amount of time that you've said it's going to take in order to do this thing. So you need to keep everything, all your key points, you need to keep an eye on the time. Like you see you got 5 minutes left. 5 minutes is time to be wrapping up. Like 5 minutes feels like a while, but now it's time to start wrapping up. You want to be finishing things. Because if you've covered everything, you should be getting there. But try and space out all those key points throughout the interview so you know you hit them. But make sure you stick to the time slot that you've got. Because like I said, it's just respectful to everyone. And also, it makes for a better show. It makes for a more concise, better show. A couple of final points I would give to you that when you're interviewing people or when you're hosting something, everything you say should serve what's happening. So by that I mean you're not really there to... It's not the you show. It's basically what I'm there to say. Like, you are holding it together and you are making sure everything's happening, but the event, what people want to know, is from the person you're talking to. So when you talk, it should serve that conversation. And that doesn't mean that you have to be dry and you have to be boring. Like I said, you want to keep it conversational. I like, if someone wants to be funny right back. Have fun with it. Like, that serves the conversation. Because what you want to do as I've said, showcase the absolute best of the person that you're interviewing from, and you need to follow that. But whatever you're doing needs to serve that purpose. So be aware of that. Another kind of addendum to that, leave room for people to speak. I know when I first started doing this, I would say too much. Like I would sit there and, so when in relation to this, like trying to show off that I knew something to them, that's not important. They're there to talk, and you need to leave that room for them to speak. You need to have a sense of when they finished speaking so you can start talking. But I would say, and it's a feeling, and you know it, like when you're talking to someone, you're interviewing them, you get that feeling of like they're about to stop talking. My advice, hold back. It'll feel like an age, but it's like a microsecond, because there could be more that there's going to say, and you leaving that gap leaves them a gap that they will fill with more information, something interesting, something about the game that you're talking about that they wouldn't have said if you jump right in. So leave room for people to talk. I think that's super important. Oh, hey, before I go, bonus tip. You're going to have talk show hosts, you're going to have YouTubers, you're going to have podcast hosts that you enjoy and that you like. For me, Graham Norton. I love Graham Norton. I think Graham Norton is the best interviewer in the world right now, in my opinion. So I watch Graham Norton, listen to Graham Norton, all that stuff, because then I get a sense of what they're doing in order to achieve what I think is the best. That's a bonus tip to you. Make sure you watch people that you respect, that you think are great, and learn what they're doing, what techniques they're using to make them so good. And that about wraps it up, but I want to hear from you. Have you hosted a podcast or done an interview and developed your own tips? Let us know below. And hey, that's not all I could talk about here. If there's anything you'd like to hear more, like I've been doing this for like 6 or 7 years now, which is kind of crazy now I think about it. I've been doing that for a while. Wow. If there's anything else you'd like to know in this vein, I can make more videos about it. Put it in the comments below, let me know. Be sure to like this video if you've enjoyed it, and be sure to subscribe because we got a ton more stuff coming up on this channel all the time, from myself, from Lewis, from the rest of the team. So do stick around. Be sure to reach out to us on socials if you have any questions at all. For now though, thank you for joining me. It's been great. I could talk about this kind of stuff all day, as you could probably tell. So it's been a lot of fun. I will see you very soon. Thank you for watching this video. Take care.